Have you ever watched a leader, I mean, it could be anyone, a founder, a political figure, maybe even a big thought leader, and they just have this explosive, rapid success?
Oh, all the time. They're all over the headline.
Exactly. And then, just a few years later, they sort of quietly fade away.
It's the classic story of modern leadership, isn't it?
Yeah.
The headlines just love the meteoric rise, the 18 months to unicorn status thing.
Right.
But the real challenge for anyone who wants lasting impact, it's not starting strong. It's sustainability. We see so many people mistake that initial momentum for genuine mastery. They just assume the early success will kind of fuel itself.
And that observation is really central to the sources we're looking at today. So, okay, let's unpack that. Our mission, really, in this deep dive is to pull out the principles for endurance.
That's right.
That quiet, consistent, sometimes really grueling discipline you need to sustain influence and integrity, not just for a season, but, over decades.
And to ground this whole conversation, we're going to use this really powerful metaphor you find in a lot of ancient wisdom and faith traditions.
The long race.
The long race. Viewing leadership as a marathon, it demands you shed the extra weight, you stay focused, and you commit to the finish line. We're here to basically map out that race.
So let's start by really defining endurance, because
Okay.
it's so much more than just stamina or just refusing to quit.
Yeah, if you look across the material, endurance is always described as this capacity to navigate what's inevitable. The obstacles, the distractions, the personal struggles that come up over decades. And here's the key insight. The real test of a leader. It isn't measured in those big, splashy moments of triumph. It's measured in the long, quiet seasons of trial, when the vision gets a little blurry and your energy is just gone.
And the sources give us this incredible illustration. It's this tale of two leaders that really contrasts starting strong with finishing faithfully.
Yeah, this is so good.
On one side, you have Jonathan Railton. In the early 20th century, they called him the prodigy preacher.
Oh, yeah. The guy was magnetic, just pure charisma. His organization's attendance, it tripled in a few months.
A superstar.
A total superstar. Brilliant speaker, national news almost overnight, just surrounded by people telling him how great he was. But the material shows that his internal framework, it just didn't match that external platform.
What was going on underneath?
Well, beneath that amazing surface, there was this restlessness, this subtle obsession with achievement, with his own glory, rather than the slow, hard work of, character formation.
And what happened?
Well, within 10 years, the pressure, the subtle creep of pride, and then eventually moral and financial compromises. It all just completely unraveled everything he'd built. He just flamed out. His career was a perfect, spectacular sprint.
Wow. Okay, so now contrast that with Mary Fletcher.
Right.
A missionary and educator working in much quieter settings in the late 1800s. No headlines.
No headlines, no viral videos, nothing. She started her work with zero fanfare, facing chronic illness, constant financial problems, really hostile conditions sometimes.
Yeah.
But, and this is the whole point, she just remained faithful day after day for over 4 decades. She wasn't focused on the immediate results. She was focused on deep formation in a small community.
And the result of that?
The result was, when she died in her late 70s, generations of community builders, theologians, educators, they all traced their core wisdom, their spiritual architecture, right back to her patient endurance.
So the lesson is clear.
So clear. Leadership is judged not by how fast you climb, but by the lasting quality of your legacy. History remembers the one who finishes faithfully.
What really stands out to me there is the idea that early success itself, it can be a trap. The sources call it illusions of competence.
Illusions of competence, exactly.
Yeah.
And they absolutely can be a trap. I mean, imagine a young founder whose first 2 startups exit for a huge profit. That success often masks these huge flaws. Maybe they have poor boundaries, maybe they need constant validation, or they're just emotionally immature. Flaws that haven't been tested by a real crisis yet.
It gives them a fragile foundation.
Totally fragile.
Yeah.
The core truth here is that faithfulness, that's the soil. Character grows in that soil. Fruitfulness is just the harvest. There's no shortcut.
Okay, so if we're going to run this race, we have to talk about the inner life. What sustains the runner? Let's get into our next segment. Sustaining the inner life, starting with vision. You can't endure if you don't have a North Star.
And that North Star has to be deeply rooted. I mean, we all know that phrase from Proverbs, where there is no vision, the people perish.
Right.
But if you dig into the original Hebrew, The word there is oozon. It doesn't just mean a good idea or a business plan.
Yeah.
It implies this deep divine revelation, a conviction you just cannot walk away from. That's what holds a leader up when everything else is shaking.
And we see this perfectly in the story of Nehemiah. His vision didn't start with ambition. It started with heartbreak.
Yes. Just pure heartbreak over hearing the walls of Jerusalem were in ruins, leaving his people totally exposed.
And that heartbreak became his mission.
It became his mandate, and that mandate gave him this incredible clarity in the middle of total chaos. I mean, when he started rebuilding, he was mocked, he faced political opposition.
And outright threats.
Outright threats of violence. But his vision, it became his defense. It fortified his soul. It let him deliver that iconic line when his enemies tried to lure him away.
I am carrying on a great work.
And cannot come down. Just think about that for today. Vision helps you say no. No to the endless distractions, the unimportant meetings, because you know what's at stake in your core mission.
And right alongside vision, you have resilience, which, again, is another one of those words that I think gets watered down to just grit.
It does, but the sources are really clear that resilience, in this context, is the spiritual capacity to be formed by hardship. It's not about avoiding suffering. It's about deep faithfulness through suffering. And this is important. The material reminds us that trials are rarely meant to be punitive. They're often purifying, like a refining fire. Adversity isn't always proof you failed. Sometimes it's proof you're being prepared for something bigger.
You know, that's hard to square with the pressure today to just project total confidence, especially in, like, the corporate world. Doesn't leaning into weakness sound a little like an excuse?
That is a critical question. And it's why the Apostle Paul's writings are so key here. His whole idea of resilience wasn't about manufacturing his own strength. It was rooted in this radical idea that real power, the kind that sustains you for decades, is actually made perfect in weakness.
Okay, so how does that actually work in a boardroom, in 2025?
It translates into self-awareness and sustainable energy. A leader who depends only on their own talent, their own charisma, they will burn out, they'll collapse. But a leader who embraces their weakness, that's someone who delegates well, who builds a team to cover their blind spots, who understands their own emotional and physical limits. So resilience becomes the ability to lead while knowing you're fragile. It forces you to rely on resources bigger than yourself, whether that's your community or divine strength.
That really shifts the whole conversation from ego to structure, which is a great transition to our third segment. Consistency and momentum. I mean, our culture rewards intensity, right? The sprint.
The sprint, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the kind of momentum we're talking about here is progressive, not explosive. And the key is just consistency.
So simple, but so hard.
So hard. It means you keep moving forward even when the pace feels agonizingly slow. Look at Abraham. From the time he got his first calling to the actual birth of Isaac.
Yeah.
That promise. It was nearly 25 years.
25 years. And it was a messy 25 years, full of tension, mistakes, long periods of silence.
Exactly. But the defining tone of his life was this continuous forward movement, despite all the setbacks. His momentum was formed by thousands of small daily disciplines, not a few heroic acts.
And that consistency is what protects you from discouragement.
It protects you from the emotional roller coaster. And it compounds your impact over time, just like compound interest. And to do that, the sources all recommend structured living.
Which means scheduling more than just meetings.
Way more. It means putting non-negotiable daily and weekly rhythms in your calendar. Time for reflection, silence, prayer. These aren't things you fit in if you have time. They are the anchors.
And seasonal planning, too.
Crucial. So many leaders pace their lives around external pressure. Don't do that. Pace your life around natural rhythms of rest. You have to build in the margin or the job will just eat it all.
Okay, and one last strategy here. Celebrating small wins.
Yes, you have to. Your brain needs that reinforcement. This is a long, taxing race, and acknowledging small wins, finishing a tough project, navigating a conflict, well, that's the fuel that renews your motivation for the next leg.
This race can sound lonely, but segment 4 is all about the fact that you never run alone. Endurance is a shared pilgrimage.
It has to be. Isolation, the sources say, just breeds these dangerous blind spots. And if you try to run it solo, your character will eventually erode. So you need at least 3 relational anchors.
The first one is mentors.
Right. These are the voices that call you higher. They've run further down the road. They transfer courage just by being near you, by sharing their story.
Okay, number 2, accountability partners.
These are the voices that call you back. And you have to be so intentional here. You need someone who is committed to truth more than they are committed to your feelings or your title.
They protect your integrity.
They protect your integrity by asking the hard questions. And third, you need a supportive community.
The voices that call you home.
The voices that call you home. These are the people who make the long journey emotionally sustainable. They're with you when you fail, when the headlines are bad. They're just there.
And that brings us to the spine of it all. Integrity. Talent can open doors for sure, but it's character that keeps you in the room for decades.
And it's directly tied to security. Proverbs says, "Whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but whoever takes crooked paths will be found out." That integrity provides the internal stability you need to endure.
What's really alarming in the material is how moral downfall actually starts. It's rarely some big dramatic sin.
No, it's the slow erosion, the
Yeah.
small, tolerated compromises. King Saul's impatience, King David ignoring self-discipline. These little things, they wear you down. Endurance requires this intense vigilance against that slow decay.
So integrity has to be structured. It has to be intentional.
Exactly. The classic example is Billy Graham's Modesto Manifesto. It was this ethical framework he and his team made early on, building guardrails against temptation, financial temptation, sexual temptation, all of it. He put the structures in place before he was famous.
That is a huge takeaway. I mean, how does a CEO or a politician create their own Modesto Manifesto today?
It's all about pre-commitment. A CEO might implement absolute financial transparency with their board. A political figure might have a strict two-person rule for sensitive meetings. You create intentional structures that remove the opportunity for temptation before it even shows up. It's how you make endurance possible.
Which brings us to our final segment, looking past the day-to-day to the finish line. The eternal perspective and legacy. We have to reframe success.
Yeah, think about those ancient runners. You know what the prize was? A wreath of pine needles or wild celery? It wilted in a day. The rewards were temporary. True endurance is measured by something that lasts.
It's that teaching from Jesus, right? Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth.
But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. The application is so clear. We have to pour our energy into the things that are imperishable.
Which are?
People, character, relationships, personal growth. Those are the investments that don't decay when the market crashes.
And this all leads to legacy.
Legacy,
Yeah.
which is just impact that outlives you. It's generational. Paul gives us the roadmap at the end of his life. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Legacy is built by aligning your daily actions with that long-term impact. And crucially, by mentoring the next generation. That's the final act of endurance.
This has been just an incredible map for the marathon of leadership. We've defined endurance, talked vision, consistency, relationships, integrity.
So the challenge for you now is to move from theory to practice.
Yeah.
You have to actually implement these frameworks, create your own vision map, cement your relational support map, find those mentors, track your momentum.
Because endurance isn't the reward for strong people.
Yeah.
It is the inheritance of hopeful people. Your influence won't be determined by how fast you ran at the start, but by whether you walked that long road of integrity with persistence.
And here's the final thought we want to leave you with. True strength in the long race isn't measured by the power you can draw from inside yourself. It's measured by your willingness to keep your eyes fixed on the purpose ahead of you, knowing that your real influence is sustained only when your own strength finally runs out.